Hello. As promised in a few reply comments to the last video and the short, this is the video I'm creating that I refer to. It's one all about contrasts, and that is definitely being reflected in the weather. What a contrast to last year. It's intermittent rain. It's only about 14 degrees, not particularly warm. So it's reflecting. I've not been up for long, and even that is a reflection. I don't know what I was dreaming about, but I'm almost glad to be awake, because whatever I was dreaming must have been very active, very busy, because I feel like I've been run over by a truck. But it's just contrasts, and that is very much the topic of this video. So I don't know how many, I'm sure some of you have seen it's quite the most recent Archaix video called Dark AI World Builder, or something along those lines. I'll put the link in the description. But that shows a lot of reflections in what Jason talks about and the video itself. So let's just take the whole idea. What is an errant? It is one that goes off and goes their own way and does their own thing. Well, Jason basically said that. He went off to Las Vegas on his own. He did his own thing. So you've got a perfect showing by example being given there. Now, what is interesting also is Las Vegas. I straight away think of casinos and slot machines and all the bright lights. And there is a potential to gain wealth in the material sense if you get it right on one of those slot machines. You're being lured by bright lights and the potential for instant wealth in the material sense. Isn't it strange how you've got Las Vegas, then when we look internally, you have what is called the vagus nerve, which runs between the brain and the heart. That can be snapped if a baby during the process of birth has its head pulled. It can snap that nerve that connects the brain to the heart, and hey presto, you get basically an instant narcissist that has no connection between the mind and the heart. Because with that vagus that connects the heart obviously is very much associated with gold, hence the saying hearts of gold. So you can see the reflection, you can see the same pattern in the material with Las Vegas. Let's also look at what Jason was talking about. And if you think about this, I'm playing the role of a watcher because I watched the video. So I'm observing and I'm sharing what I've seen that has been reflected in this. I'm grateful for channels that look into things that I have absolutely no knowledge of. The whole idea of asking AI questions, to me, is a red flag anyway. Because if you think in the spiritual sense, it's about going back to source. And the information that is coming from these AI answers to your questions, well, what is the source of that information that you're getting back? And if we think of it in the physical terms, because it is so instant, it is like a reaction. rather than a response. So the topic that Jason talks about is something I'd never heard of, but just from the name of it tells me an awful lot. It's an AI program called Not Diamond. Now, is there a pattern in this? Certainly yes. I've only got to consider the nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty, because in that it tells you what cannot. By that I mean when you get to the line about all the king's horses and all the king's men could not put Humpty back together again. So it's telling you what can't, but it isn't telling you what can. So now when we consider the name of this AI as Not Diamond, so if it's not a diamond, what is it? I've only got to consider what Rudolf Steiner talks about in, I think it was the lecture on colours. And a diamond is formed by enormous pressure that converts carbon, which is like a black mass, into a diamond. From that, I would suggest that what is behind Not Diamond is something like carbon, a black rock of some kind, you could say. I feel that is being reflected and sort of gives away the sort of source that is behind that, because it's very interesting, the questions that were posed, and these instant responses came back, and Jason even pointed to what was number one on the list. I'm not going to do a spoiler alert. I'd like you to listen to that video and just see what comes out of it. So to form a diamond requires enormous pressure on the carbon to create the diamond. So this not diamond is actually doing the opposite, because you don't need to think. You've got the answers given to you in an instant. But then you need to check the sources of those answers. But surely, if the question is, what is something that many people believe to not be true, before I'd even looked at that video, if somebody was to ask me that question, I would have thought the number one would have been this character, Jesus Christ, as an historical character, a carnalized Christ figure, when it is clearly understood from various ancient religions and things that it is just purely an interpretation to express it. It's not to be taken literally. So there's a pattern there in that. So the not diamond, it's taking away the pressure of going through the critical thinking required, and it's giving you a ready answer where it's not quoting sources, and it's confirming that the answers that are given are coming from a very different source. This is also becoming more apparent with the whole medical industry, that doctors are being basically sidelined, and the implication is they will be replaced, and the AI will use collections of data to make a diagnosis. But it leaves out something critically important. Now, there's a pattern to this as well. Consider an instant 3-minute microwave shepherd's pie, and I'm sure you'd be able to taste the difference between that and a shepherd's pie that has been made by a human, by something living rather than by something non-living that is a process by a machine. So the microwave shepherd's pie, it might be more convenient, and very much it is convenient, because it is saving you time, but is it really benefiting you physically from consuming that? We are joined by Damiana now, so a good thing I've colour coordinated with her fur and what I'm wearing. So there's always these patterns in these reflections that can be found. If you take a sort of impartial, objective view of things and you weigh them up with the comparison of the external with the internal. So the non-pressure of this knot diamond, for example, is going to give you the convenience. You haven't got to look into anything, you haven't got to spend time on anything. It will give you a ready answer. But is it a true answer? It looks very much that they are agenda answers of a very different source from the one that you are truly seeking. Now, 11:44 I've just noted on the duration of this video. So look at the patterns in things. Find the blueprints, because everything seems to follow the same blueprints regardless of whether they seem to be something that we would perceive as negative as opposed to we'd see as positive. I'm pretty sure that Las Vegas is in the state of Nevada. I could look it up, I know, but as I'm already recording the video, I can't stop it and check that. But Area 51, as I understand it, there were various tests done with nuclear things. A few years ago there was that whole idea of storming Area 51. Well, if it is true that that region is highly radioactive, radiation is clearly not good for the physical body. So in a way you could say you would find an alien invasion. From my observation of people that have going through the process of chemotherapy, they do seem to have a very grey complexion about them, like death warmed up, almost being microwaved, you could say. So again, I see a sort of pattern in that, and that iconic sort of symbol that has come into this reality since about 1945 of grey aliens, where you get the grey complexion and you're definitely being invaded by something through the radiation. So I'm certainly not advocating go to that area, which is a sort of military no-go zone anyway. I don't feel that you would do yourself any favours whatsoever, but you may actually find that alien invasion in a very individualised form that will affect you internally. But there is nothing new about anything, really. It's just our perception. Anything that is not natural to the physical body is an alien invasion. So even a surgeon's knife that may be cutting you open, you could say that that knife is an alien invasion to the physical body because it doesn't belong there. That's leaving off anything that may be implanted as well. So always reflect upon what is being shown to you. Cross-compare with things. Another prime example of this is you can pull apart the whole accepted state church interpretation with the Bible by doing cross comparison of the Old Testament and the New Testament, and within the New Testament itself, that actually pulls it apart. There is a Jesus Christ playlist on this channel which I feel proves beyond any doubt that that is a made-up story that has taken elements from different stories and fused together to create a new story. There is a pattern to that as well. I've only got to consider Wagner's Ring Cycle, where the composer Richard Wagner took German mythology and basically preserved it, but created a new story that brings these different elements of German mythology together and basically comes out with the same story that is reflected in the Bible at the esoteric level of understanding of it. As a side, a sort of shortcut, as it were, it's basically a message of love triumphs over everything, which brings us back to maintaining that connection through that vagus nerve between the brain and the heart. There's a reflected pattern in this. If you wish to connect to the internet of all things, then you need a stable connection. Look at the word stable as well. What does it say in that biblical story that Jesus was born basically in a stable? So a stable environment is being implied from that. But of course, it's how we look at these things, how we read these things. Do we see them as isolated, singular things that are disconnected? Because one of the overriding messages about the whole realm of the spiritual and the esoteric is nothing is not connected to anything else. Everything is all interconnected, which I feel you may already see that anyway. I don't want to make this video too long because I've got to go out there and walk up the road a little bit and upload it, and I've got to try and dodge the rain showers, which is getting damp is not exactly good for my physical health, which I'm finding at the moment. But I can look at it in the negative sense and say, it's raining. Or I can just let things unfold, because can I change it? To a certain degree, I would say yes, we can. It comes down to the vibration and what we emit internally that we are then radiating out to the external. So again, coming back to Las Vegas, the bright lights, the wealth in the material sense. So effectively, we become like a casino in the spiritual sense, and we are radiating out a bright light. We are displaying an internal wealth to the outside world, as it were. And I don't feel you have to look too far to see examples of that in art when you consider all these sort of pedestalized characters always have halos, the implication about radiating out a light, as it were. Wow, it's raining again. So nearly up to 20 minutes, I feel that's a good place to stop. What I've talked about in this video is very much in line with what I talk about on these courses that I offer, giving you new ways to look at things, ways to cross-compare with things, ways to come to finding those blueprint patterns that are going to greatly aid you. I've mentioned this before about the material world and the one-size-fits-all, and how things really do need to be tailored to our individual paths. And again, coming back to the definition of an errant, it's one that goes their own way. That was shown with Jason. Although he's with fellow errants, he went off and did his own thing, as he said on the video. A perfect example of being an errant and putting it into action. So the courses that I offer are there to give you new ways to see things, the new ways to hear things, new ways to interpret things that I feel will benefit you greatly, will help you unlock what is already inside yourself. Those gatekeepers that are often mentioned, for example, we are our own gatekeeper when we haven't got this vagus connection between the heart and the mind, because the heart really does know. It's going back to source, so therefore it's coming from the heart. The heart actually does have a cellular structure, so it is effectively a brain anyway. So again, there's a pattern in all of these things to find. So I think, yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I feel that gives you a sort of general overview to look at patterns, or to find the patterns in things might be a more accurate way of saying it. So until the next video, as always, unconditional love to you all.